Well, hello everybody and welcome in. We're so glad you're with us today. We're taping this show on a really nasty day in Oklahoma. Little rain, a lot of rain, no sun, and a lot of wind. And I'm going to add to that. But our guest today is this is an honor for us. Chuck Hoskin Jr. is the Principal Chief of the Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma. Good to have you, Chief.
Good honor and a privilege to be here, Sam.
You say that again. How are things with the tribe?
We're good. Very strong position. Seems like every day we've got some new opportunity to do something meaningful, and that's why we're doing this.
How often do you have to deal with the governor?
Well, continually. I mean, it's continual in that the relationship between the state of Oklahoma and the Cherokee Nation, no matter who's in these seats, is one of the most important relationships in really all of Indian country when you think about it. And so his policies affect us. It spikes from time to time in terms of dealing with the governor. So compact negotiations are underway, disagreements over whether the state should be operating a food security program for kids that don't have much money, and we decide to do it. That'll pop up in the news. And so from time to time, it sort of spikes in terms of...
That's the EBT?
EBT program. And so there's just all sorts of things that come on the scene that often is conflict, but we try to work together, and recently we signed a new compact, or we reached terms on a new compact.
Well, it seems as though, and I know the folks at home will know what I'm talking about, when I pick up the paper, the local paper, there's some sort of criticism coming from his office aimed directly at you or at you and the tribe. Why?
Well, I will give him credit for this. He says what he means. I mean, he has said when he sees that reservations have been reaffirmed that they ought to be stopped. He really means it, and he really thinks he can stop them. And so I'll give him credit for not sort of obscuring his real feelings about Indian country. He really doesn't think in the 21st century tribes ought to be exercising meaningful government authority. The reason it's often Cherokee Nation versus Governor Stitt, or even myself as chief versus Governor Stitt, is because we're the largest tribe. I don't have any regrets, although I probably have let my temper get the best of me a time or two, but I generally don't have any regrets over pushing back on him. And so that often will capture some media attention or elicit a response from him, or I have to respond to something he says. But the relationship's so important, Oklahoma and the Cherokee Nation, that it's regrettable that there's been so much conflict under his time as governor.
A lot of folks don't realize that yours is not just a symbolic position. You are essentially an activist for the tribe, and after the tribe, you start to bring in others. I've seen you do this time and time again. You've got to have your finger on the pulse and a darn good staff behind you.
You do, because it's a big job. I mean, think about Cherokee Nation. They're the largest tribe in the country by population. The government of the Cherokee Nation is very large. I mean, when you look at what Cherokee Nation does, it does just about everything the federal government does except print money and have a standing army. Those are big things, but the rest of the workings of government are very much in the wheelhouse of the Cherokee Nation, therefore something that I have to oversee. I got a great staff, got a great cabinet. We're a government that looks familiar to any Oklahoman or any American in that we have different branches. So we have a legislative branch that I work very good with, the judiciary. So it's a big job, it's a good job.
Does your wife understand, because you're gone all the time, what the job demands?
Not only does she understand what the job demands, she's the reason I'm here, and she's informed so much of my understanding of what government can and should do for people. So she's been an advocate for women's rights, for kids, for a range of issues that matter to families. And so much of what she and I think about as we're younger people, because we've been together since we were teenagers, has helped me understand what the Cherokee Nation can do, and she's right there with me.
And she's been with you that long, and wow, that's saying something.
Truly, yeah.
You have 2 children, don't you?
I do. I have 2 children, wonderful children, and I've got grandchildren. And so my son is a deputy sheriff, and my daughter's 18. She's finding her way in the world. She's got a lot of great interest, and they're both very bright.
Wow. Any of them interested in running for office?
I think I've soured them on the whole proposition of politics. So,
now that's funny. That's really funny. Let's talk a little bit more about the about the EBT program. Let the folks at home know how it operates and what it serves.
So it serves low-income Americans. I mean, it's all across the country, but it's administered by states. So here's what it does. In the summertime, which we know from all we know, that's the time when kids have the least food security if they're low income. Why? They're out of school. Those programs that normally act as a safety net are gone. We know a couple of things about kids that can't get access to food if they're low income. We know that they still eat. In fact, some of the criticism of this program is, well, my goodness, everybody's eating. They're not eating well. And what we know is that health outcomes are lower if food security is lower. If you don't have money for food, you tend to buy what's the cheapest. It's often not very nutritious, and it actually, in a counterintuitive way, leads to things like obesity and other health problems. So the program is designed to give $40 a month during those 3 months of the summer. The state of Oklahoma had operated it previously. We operated it for all kids within our reservation. The state of Oklahoma decided, and several other states did too, they just weren't going to do it this year. It was really stunning, and so it highlighted that we were doing it yet again. Here's the economic proposition though, Sam. People are familiar with Cherokee Nation, Northeast Oklahoma, 14 counties, about 7,000 square miles, a lot of communities people know, including where we are now in Claremore. We leverage about $250,000 of administrative costs that we shoulder in exchange for $3.5 million. Now, I wasn't the best math student, Sam, but $250,000, turn that into $3.5 million for hungry kids, that's a pretty easy call from where I sit.
No
the
kidding.
state turned all of that back, millions of dollars. I think it's ideological. I think there's some sort of a decision on the part of state, or the governor who made the decision that this is just sort of a government overreach. I'm telling you, the kids that I see in these schools, they're not concerned about government overreach, and neither are their families. They want to eat. This is a lifeline. There's no real strings attached other than we shoulder an administrative cost. And so we're doing it for all kids. I want to express that, all kids in our territory, our reservation.
So it doesn't matter if they're part of the tribe or not.
Doesn't matter. We just administer it.
If memory serves me, it seems about 4 years ago or so, the tribe turned loose the news about a program there where they were doing a lot of farming. They were essentially pushing tribal members to farm more than they needed, so there was a donation factor of food there. Is that still underway?
That's a program, and when you said donation, it really reminded me of what we used to call it, and some people still call it, donated foods. And really what it was is similar to what we used to call food stamps, now we call SNAP. Our donated foods program was really about marrying the agriculture sector, many Native Americans, and they were encouraged to participate, with food security. And so the food that could be produced in surplus sent to what used to be tailgates of trucks in some communities. Now it operates similarly. We get the food through USDA, but it's a lot of native farmers and a lot of other farmers, and we provide a grocery store, really dignified experience for people who are Cherokee citizens who choose that over what we now call SNAP. We used to call food stamps. I think it's a really good program. It's nutritious food. It's food that gets them through the month. And what I tell people is most of the people who benefit from this are elders and little kids. And if there's two groups in society we ought to be looking out for, those are really the two we ought to be looking out for.
I'm going to say this, and then we'll move on to something else. There are a lot of Cherokee folk I know who will not carry a $20 bill. And I wondered if there should have been a movement down there to put the governor's picture on one.
Well, I'll tell you what, the guy who's on there now is not somebody we are shy about expressing disdain for, and he'll go down, and it has gone down in history as anti-Indian. Governor Stitt, unless he changes, will go down in history as the most anti-Indian tribe governor in the history of the state, which is it's a high bar. I mean, you got to really be anti-tribe to get there. But I think Wilma Mankiller should be on the $20 bill myself, so maybe we'll get that done.
Hello. All right. Sarah Hill.
Yes.
Talk to me about her.
Well,
are you pleased with what you see?
Oh, I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled for the country and the region in particular because we need more judges on the bench. I'm pleased for the country and the region because we need a judiciary that looks more like the country, which means we need more women, we need more people from marginalized communities, whether it's socioeconomic, race, or in this case, a citizen of an Indian nation. So that's the first thing, is she's very qualified. She helps diversify the bench and add to the bench. But I'm particularly thrilled that she in particular is on there because she's a brilliant attorney. She was the Attorney General for the Cherokee Nation during a time when we needed the surest leadership in that office. Think about what we were going through. A gaming compact dispute with the governor began in 2019. That seems so quaint now, given that we went through COVID and a lot of the legal issues around COVID. That seems so distant now when you think about McGirt, the most dramatic decision by the Supreme Court in centuries for Indian country, and it took somebody of her caliber to wrap her mind around that and to give people like me guidance, and she guided me well. So she's perfectly suited for that. She got bipartisan support. That's good for the country.
It certainly is. You know, I'm in your area of the woods from time to time, and one of the things I've noticed, I don't see many homeless. In fact, I don't see any homeless people down there. What's your secret?
Well, in terms of our citizens, we do everything we can to help in a really holistic and comprehensive way. So a lot of it's housing programs. I mean, we're a type of government that believes that we should have a role in providing some path to home ownership. So we've got a great program for that. Some path to rental assistance. And here's where it's tough for people. Rent is high right now in a lot of the country, including this region. When rent is high, people on the margins, boy, they're close to falling off the cliff because they're close to homelessness. So we see people being sort of displaced from housing, but we have programs to help them. Now, it doesn't mean we're perfect, but it means that we think it's our job to see if somebody's on the verge of homelessness. Let's try to stabilize them. So that I think it's our view of the role of government that makes the difference. We're not a sink or swim, every man for himself type of society, I don't think, at the Cherokee Nation. We're all in it together. But candidly, there are a lot of people under pressure right now in terms of housing. And it goes back to the rent issue I'm talking about. It's taking a lot of resources of the Cherokee Nation and the federal government to try to stabilize people. I am concerned, though, that if things don't improve, that it'll get worse and worse and worse. One of the ways we can improve it, though, is to increase the housing stock. And that's something that takes government and private sector really putting forth an effort.
Joining hands.
Truly.
And those, you got to have a good grip if you do.
Truly.
The Major Crimes Act. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Feel free. Doesn't that act originally go back to what, 1898 or 1889?
Yes.
What's going on with that act?
Well, some context here is really important. The government of the United States, certainly in the late part of the 19th century, which you just identified as the origins of the Major Crime Act, they had a problem from their perspective. You got these Indian tribes operating governments, including criminal justice. And so to keep us in check, so to speak, they imposed a lot of restraints. Those restraints have changed a bit over the years. In other words, what can a tribe do? It's really paternalistic. What can we trust tribal governments to do? There's constraints on how we can sentence people. There's constraints on who we can hold accountable for law breaking. Non-Indians are largely out of our authority. And of course, the whole debate about McGirt is about our role in prosecuting Native Americans and the federal government's role in that. One issue with the Major Crimes Act that is a real concern to me, it was written at a time when the language was much different than we would use now to describe how Native Americans are sort of classified. The court decisions that have interpreted the Major Crimes Act are really what's at issue here. In the Cherokee Nation, as you know, and we've talked about this before, Cherokee citizens of freedmen descent are equal citizens. I'm not a superior citizen than a Cherokee citizen who descends from a slave freed in the 1860s, 1863 by the Cherokee Nation, 1866 by treaty. The problem is the Major Crimes Act, as it's been interpreted, requires a blood quantum. If you're a Cherokee citizen, as equal as the chief, but you don't have a blood quantum because you descend from a slave, you are outside of the Major Crimes Act. That creates a separate and inherently unequal application of that law. Here's what it means in practical terms. Cherokee citizens of freedmen descent are subject to state prosecution. It's wrong, and we need to fix it.
I'll be darned.
Yeah. Because, this country, we thought, did away with separate but equal in 1954. We thought we were beyond that. No one did this intentionally, but the United States needs to recognize that equality ought to be the order of the day. And they need to, and I kind of pridefully tell them this, they need to catch up with the Cherokee Nation, because equality is the order of the day here.
That's a nice, sweet way of saying it. There seem to be politicians who work against the tribe. No matter what you do, no matter what you say, oh, that's just some Indian talking. They don't recognize or realize the impact the tribe has on the state of Oklahoma and in the other states where they reside.
Yeah, that's true. I think one of the things we have going for us, though, are the array of elected officials and other government leaders and civic and business leaders who do recognize that. There are some who don't. I think particularly the ones who are the harshest anti-sovereignty folks, they either don't understand the positive impact or they conveniently ignore it. But it's plain. I mean, if you look at our economic impact, billions of dollars, thousands of jobs, and we were the employer of 14,000 people around the world. Now, Sam, when I say that, I think of my grandfather, and I think he would be blown away to hear his grandson tell an audience that we employ 14,000 people around the world, that we have a multi-billion-dollar impact, multi-billion-dollar business portfolio. Ask any sheriff if we help with law enforcement and help them get through the year and the month or the day sometimes. Yeah, there's a lot of them that'll line up. Ask any county commissioner that'll show you roads we helped build for everyone. Ask schools who are getting ready to get over $7.5 million from the Cherokee Nation because we believe in public education. Ask people who work in our state-of-the-art health system and take home a really good wage to a lot of rural communities. The impact can be measured lots of ways. We harness millions of dollars to the state of Oklahoma that wouldn't be here without us. And it's shared broadly, and the EBT program is a good example of that, where we're feeding kids.
Well, explain to me something, because I really am at a loss about this whole thing involving Bacone College. What happened?
Well, Bacone College actually originated within the Cherokee Nation long, long ago, before statehood. It moved to Muskogee, actually in the Muskogee Creek Nation, where it remains today. It has been a private college. And it's affiliated with a church, as many private colleges are. And from my perspective, what's happened over the years is it's fallen victim to some forces outside of its control, and perhaps at different times, not now, but at different times, some not great management. The external forces have been a private education at a really small school in pretty rural part of America. That's a tough proposition because there's lots of options to go get various degrees that are much less expensive to students. And so they start to lose enrollment. When they lose enrollment, they start to lose funds. They lose funds, something like losing nursing programs happen, and nursing was a big driver of what that school did. So when nursing goes away, suddenly it's even less attractive. As it's less attractive, fewer students to pay that fairly high tuition compared to public schools, or public universities and colleges. And I do think there, along the way, was some management that wasn't great. Not now. The folks that are there now are doing their level best to stabilize things, but I think it's just been external forces, changes in higher education. It was never a Cherokee Nation operated entity, although it was affiliated with and associated with tribes. It's not something that we have a role in sort of sustaining, and we do put a lot into higher education, but not that particular institution.
Not that particular one.
At this time.
You tapped on something I want to go back to just a moment, talking about the McGirth ruling and all. Do the law enforcement officials with the tribe work hand in hand with law enforcement outside the tribe?
They do, and that's really the only way this entire system works. I mean, imagine, Sam, if you and I were out in the community and law enforcement had to be called on me. I'm a Cherokee and I'm breaking the law. Perhaps you're the victim. It wouldn't happen, but let's use that as an example just to capture the attention of everyone. Claremore Police Department comes out and says, wait a minute, we got to figure out if we even can hold this guy accountable, this guy being me. He's Cherokee. We've got to call the marshal. Let's wait. Meantime, maybe I leave or something else happens. That doesn't happen on something called cross-deputization. Claremore Police Department can come and hold me accountable, take me in, even though I'm a Cherokee. We can work out later who prosecutes me. It could be the Cherokee Nation, could be the United States Justice Department. You're protected, the community's protected. Claremore PD gets to do their job. It's through cross-deputization. We have a cross-deputization agreement with every law enforcement agency within the Cherokee Nation reservation. That's police departments, sheriff's office, highway patrol. I should note, it was the Grand River Dam Authority until Governor Stitt forced them to withdraw effectively from that relationship for a period of time. That didn't keep anybody safe. It's more gamesmanship. But what people do need to know is that there is a working relationship between the Cherokee Nation Marshal Service, which is, I'm telling you, the best in the business, and all of these different agencies.
How often do you have elections within the tribe?
We have them every 2 years because we have staggered terms, but the offices are 4 years. So I just got reelected last year. In my second term, 4-year term. We'll have elections next year, midterm elections for our
I think
council.
John Ross holds the record, doesn't he?
He does.
40 years as chief?
I won't make that record. He's 40 years. We have term limits, and so you're looking at a lame duck right now.
Oh, quack, quack. Well, since we've gone this far with politics, do you mind talking about the current political
Sure, glad
atmosphere
to.
in this country?
Glad to.
What do you think of it?
Well, I'll tell you what, in my lifetime, I never thought the real concern with politics, and I'm not talking about a particular election, just politics in general, is whether we're going to hang on to this democracy. I always thought it was debates about ideology, debates about parties, whether the country was in the right direction or wrong direction. I've got genuine concerns about the fragility of this democracy. And so that's the first thing I have to say. The other thing is all these elections are important, and if we're talking about it from the Cherokee lens, they're all important to the Cherokee Nation, and so we're keeping an eye on all of them.
I considered Ross Swimmer and Wilma Mankiller to be friends, and we often discuss the fragility of democracy in a republic, and it's a very fragile thing. It's not anything you can touch, but we all have to embrace it, and I don't see that anymore.
Yeah, and that's the concern, is democracy works when everybody believes in it. We may be disappointed in the results of an election. We might be devastated in the results of a particular election, but if we believe in democracy, there's the next one. But I think when you think about the number of democracies that have failed in world history, we think about our democracy, that's another sign that it's fragile just by the statistics. Right now, Sam, here's something I'm proud of. Cherokee Nation is one of the oldest democracies on the planet, if you consider that we started in the early 19th century. We've had some interruptions because the United States has suppressed us. We believe in democracy at the Cherokee Nation. We want the country to believe in the same.
Well, I want to thank you for coming in. We've got less than a minute, and I suppose in that minute there's not enough time to talk about next Benedict, is there?
Probably not, other than it's just something that's heartbreaking. We have to think about kids in school that are living in the shadows right now and need to be lifted up. And I think we as leaders need to watch our rhetoric, because kids are listening, the kids that are in the shadows, and other kids are listening too, and they're wondering how they should treat their fellow student. I think we've got a responsibility to lift people up, not marginalize people or diminish people, and I'm hearing that in this state, and it angers me, and I don't know what happened in the next Benedict case fully. It's being investigated, but there's a lot of kids right now that are suffering in the shadows, and elected officials need to take some responsibility for the rhetoric.
Thank you for the fight you seem to be spearheading in so many areas, and thank you for looking out for the youngsters, and thank you for what you've done for the tribe.
Thank you.
I think it's one of those things you'll be remembered, term limits or not. Anyway,
Thank you, Sam.
Thanks again for being here and being our guest.
Yes, sir.
We're very grateful. That's all the time we have for this edition, and it has been a humdinger, I got to tell you. We'll have him back again down the road just before he leaves them. We'll see you next time.